to Writer Groupie. I am here tonight with Robert Williscroft. I've been wanting to call him Williscroft all day long. And he has got a doctorate. He's Dr. Williscroft. Very impressive. And his bio thrilled me to death. I have enjoyed reading your blog and checking out your site. Robert, you're just amazing already to me. So I want for you to tell all of my viewers a little bit about you and the writing of your novel that we're going to discuss, which is called The Star Child Compact.
Well, hi to all of you out there. I'm really happy to be here. This is a fun experience for me. I've been around the block a couple times, as you can probably tell by looking at me. One of my enthusiasms from the time I was the age of my stepsons, time I was in my mid-teens, was space travel. I fell into hard science fiction. Robert Heinlein was my favorite author, but I dreamed of going to space. And things didn't work out that way. I joined the Navy because I needed to be a Navy flyer. I couldn't qualify for their flight because of an eye accommodation error, and I became a submariner instead. And ended up, the Navy paid for my scholarship and sent me to college, and I got a degree in meteorology and oceanography. And I continued focusing in my mind on space. And one day, not all that long ago, I was doing some research on the internet, and I came across some fascinating pictures of Saturn's moon, Iapetus. Now, we had a flyby in, I believe it was 2006 or 2007, and some close-up photographs, and Iapetus is different from any other moon in the solar system. It has a 20-kilometer high, 20-kilometer wide ridge that runs all around the equator, at the equator. And in the close-up pictures of the flyby, these mountains were in single column. They weren't side by side. It was one after the other. And I'm saying to myself, how does nature do that?
Exactly.
But maybe nature didn't do it. There was a hexagonal pattern all over the surface of Iapetus. There is a spire on Iapetus that is 2 kilometers high. How do you get a narrow 2-kilometer high spire that's only a couple of hundred meters wide? And I got to thinking, well, what could this be? I checked out the density of Iapetus, and Iapetus has a density less than water. But it's a rocky moon. The only way that can be is if it's hollow, or if it's made out of snow, but it clearly wasn't. It was rocky. So I'm thinking, gee, you've got this ring around the moon. You have what could be a hollow structure. Maybe it's an artifact. And as I got to thinking about that, the whole story of the Star Child Compact began to grow in my mind, and I envisioned this culture 500 light years away, who's been around for a long time, discovered that their sun was going to nova, and they had about 300 years to get the hell out of Dodge. And so they built Iapetus. They took one of their asteroids, hollowed it out, made this generational relativistic starship, and they came to our solar system before we were. In fact, they became us.
Wow.
And that's the basis. I'm not going to tell you any more because there are all kinds of twists and turns.
Yeah, I haven't read it. Don't spoil it for me because it sounds fantastic. But you also have another book that we're going to discuss as well, which was the precursor to Star Child. And yeah, you can show it. Go ahead.
Okay, this is not a prequel. This here is a different book entirely. It's called Operation Ivy Bells, and this came about because during my years in the Navy, I became a deep sea saturation diver, and I'm one of these guys who manages to step in you know what and come out smelling like a rose an awful lot. And I ended up in charge of a team of divers who embarked on a rather old nuclear submarine called the Halibut, and we crept into the Sea of Okhotsk, which is between the Kamchatka Peninsula and Siberia. It was international waters, but the Soviets back in the 70s considered this to be their territorial waters. We went in there, crept in, nobody knew we were there. We located an underwater communications cable, and we locked out of the submarine and tapped into it.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And this is a novelized version of that. And then we also picked up missile parts on the bottom because there was a splash zone there where they were sending their test missiles. And we hauled these broken missile parts back to the United States and let the CIA have a good look at them. And we knew more about why their missiles failed than they did.
Wow. Amazing. I'm telling you, you have lived such an amazing life. It's just fascinating. And I want to know if there's anything you haven't done. Is there anything that is your favorite experience, out of everything you've done? What would be your favorite and why?
That's really hard to answer. I can remember standing on a berm at the South Pole, at the geographic South Pole. The South Pole is covered with 10,000 feet of ice. And it's at a 10,000-foot altitude, of course, because the ice is 10,000 feet thick.
Jeez.
And I'm watching...
That boggles the mind.
Yeah, doesn't it? And I'm watching a C-130, a Hercules C-130 aircraft, go down the skiway and take off, realizing that that is the last contact with the outside world that we're going to have for 9 months.
Wow.
And we were in total isolation. Radios didn't work, except occasionally ham radio could break through. But with the activity of the magnetic field that comes down at near the South Pole, at the magnetic South Pole, radio communications were tough. That was a pretty extraordinary experience. On one half, I was excited. The other half, I said, Robert, you've done some pretty dumb things in your life, but this one sort of caps the whole thing.
Wow.
Then, of course, there is the time that I was up in the Arctic. A helicopter had just dropped me off 100 miles away from the ship, way out in the middle of the ice pack. Myself and 2 other guys, we dynamited a hole through the ice pack, and we dove down into the waters beneath the ice, exploring down there and trying to gather data to help us as humans understand how the ice pack grows from underneath. That was pretty spectacular.
Wow. Wasn't it cold?
Yeah. 27 degrees.
How many?
27 degrees. That's as cold as it gets. It freezes after that.
Oh my gosh. And you're down there playing around. You're an adventurer. You really, really are. Okay, so taking the info from your own experience, what can you advise aspiring authors to do in their own writing? Because, me compared to you, I don't have a life, okay? And I thought I was doing okay, but I've not done any adventurous things yet that I know of. But writing is kind of an adventure, of itself. But people always tell us to write what we know. And that can be good, that can be bad. But if you write from a position of experience, then writing what you know can benefit you as a writer. Is that what you do?
Well, in part, that's what I did. That is certainly what I did with Operation Ivy Bells. Clearly, I knew what I was talking about, and the reviews bring that out. The reviews say, here's a guy who knows, who's been there, he's done that, he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
On the other hand, neither I nor anybody else has been to Iapetus.
Right.
Okay? But I've been in submarines.
Right.
Spaceship is not that different from submarines. I got 22 months submerged underwater on submarines. Spending a few weeks or a few months on a spaceship is no different, really, except on a spaceship the pressure's inside, and on a submarine the pressure's outside.
True. Very true.
But every story is really about people, and it's about the interactions of people. You got the good guys, and you got the bad guys, and sometimes you got the really bad guys. And that's what the story's about, and everything else is a canvas against which the play takes place. So when somebody asks me, what should I do as a writer to bring my stories alive, I say, go live outside the box. Take big bites. Moderation's for monks.
I like that saying. Can I steal that?
Go take a different route. Do something different. And then, before you forget it, record it.
Wow, that's good advice. That's good advice. You know, and I want to write science fiction. I've already started. I've got a short story accepted by a publishing house for an anthology. And it was just a little fly off the collar kind of short story. It just really wasn't anything I ever expected to go anywhere. That usually is how it goes. Usually the ones you don't expect to go anywhere are the ones everybody wants. So now I've got this thing in my head about a longer novel, maybe even a series, that's science fiction. And that has been one of the things that's been holding me back from getting started writing, is I don't have any kind of experience inside any kind of a contained environment like you have, obviously, from the submarine experience. And so I'm wondering, how can I make my setting come alive for a reader if I don't have anything to compare that to? There's nothing in my experience. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and I think you do have things in your experience. I am guessing, you haven't told me this, but I'm guessing that you're a voracious reader.
True.
Okay. Well, every one of those things that you've read has been incorporated into your background experience. And you can take that. You're not plagiarizing from somebody when you take ideas and mold them and rework them and turn them into something that works for you. And so you really have a very broad set of experiences that you can work with. And I can add another little piece of advice that certainly works for me and other authors I've talked to, and I know a few. They tell me, yeah, they do something similar. Long before I start out on a story, I create my people, my characters. And I write a biography for each character. I don't worry about good English and special composition. I just list it as an outline. But I can tell you what kind of booze my characters like, what kind of bicycles they ride, whether they like fast cars or big cars, whether they like pancakes or cereal, what kind of love life they have. I have all of this categorized so that each of my characters is a real person to me, and I know exactly how they're going to react when I put them in a situation that's new to them.
Is that vital to your writing? I mean, is it like you wouldn't ever write a story without doing that?
Exactly.
That's interesting, because some people, that's just something that they have to have. They have to have, character sketches or bios of their characters. They have to know every little inside and outside and upside down for the characters. And other people, it's more about the story, like they've got to outline every chapter, and they know exactly what's going to happen and where their character's going to go and what they're going to do. And I guess I'm just a pantser. Whatever they say do, that's what I write. And I don't want to do that, really, though, Robert. I think a science fiction story especially needs to have a credible edge, and it needs to have a little plausibility to it. It has to have some real thought and development, I think. That's my opinion. But
no, I think you're absolutely right. The background that you create that includes the technology in the story, the characters and the personalities of the characters, these form a backdrop. And if they're not consistent, the astute reader will lose interest because the author didn't maintain consistency. It's kind of like the writer who jumps from one head to another, and you're getting all of these perspectives, and you're totally lost on what's happening.
Yes.
And consistency is really important. Even little things like the kinds of ubiquitous technologies that we use, the cell phone, for example, or a laptop computer, or other things that we use every day. If you're talking about the future, if you're talking about something the day after tomorrow or the year after next year or even further out, you have to be able to envision the kinds of personal technologies that they will be using. But you have to be, if you're too specific, you can date your story. If technology goes this way, when you wrote it that way, that's it, it's over. So you've got to keep it general enough and yet consistent within the framework of the story so that it works.
Yes. Have you ever had to go to outside authorities to write anything? Because you seem like you're such an authority yourself on so much.
Well, I know everything.
You know, I believe that, Robert. I do. I believe that about you.
When I need to find out something, sure, the internet is just an absolutely marvelous resource. And furthermore, I mentioned when you and I were chatting before we started this show, I mentioned that I got a couple of really bright kids in the house, and their mother, Jill, is just fantastic. And when I can't find something, they will.
That's very good. I had forgotten about those wonderful children of yours, and they are of the age that they spend an awful lot of time on the internet, I'll bet. And it's getting more and more where they're going to stay on the internet. I think that the school system, even I heard a story this week about textbooks are about to become digitized, as it were, and so they may be on the computer doing everything.
One of the elements that appears in this book and the prequel, which is going to be coming out fairly soon.
Okay, you got to tell us about that. Go ahead, but tell us about that too.
Yeah, I will. But it's something called the link, and the link is an extension of what we call the internet. And everybody has it. You can wear it on your wrist. It's somewhere on your clothing. It is so ubiquitous that nobody even thinks about it, and people use it on a regular basis. And what it does is casts a holographic image instead of a monitor, and that's the way. Well, just the day before yesterday, Microsoft announced the new holographic imaging device.
You are a man before your time.
Now, Microsoft uses goggles similar to Google Glass, but it's just a step forward, and you don't need the goggles, and you have my link.
I'm saying, that's amazing. That's amazing. And that's going to be the prequel.
Yeah, no, it's in both of them, but the prequel is called Slingshot. I don't have an image of it here, but if you go to my Twitter account at RG Williscroft, you can find the cover there. But it's the story of the construction of the world's first space launch loop, space elevator.
Wow.
And it tells about the three people, the three main characters who are in charge of the various aspects. There's a guy in charge of the overall thing. There's an incredibly accomplished woman engineer who's in charge of the underwater portion. And then there's a German guy who's in charge of the power section. And of course, I'm able to play the two guys off against her. And she is incredibly accomplished. She was chosen not because she was female, but because she was the best there was to do that. All of their bosses is a woman, Mabel Fitzwinters, who I modeled after Dixie Lee Ray, whom I told you about, who was the first chairwoman of the Atomic Energy Commission, the first female governor of the state of Washington, and my marine biology teacher. But anyway, she's a tough lady, and so I build my characters are real characters, but they're tomorrow's characters, not today's characters, and so they see things a little bit differently than we do. Their mores are a little bit different than ours, but this is the story of the construction of the first launch loop, and of course the antagonists are trying to tear it down because they want to use rockets. They want to use rocket propulsion to space. They don't want to see space opened up to every man, and it'll be out in probably about a month and a half.
Wow. I got to get started with my R.G. Williscroft bookshelf. I've got to get started. It's got to get it full because that's awesome. That's really good stuff, and I'm excited that I've gotten the opportunity to talk to you sort of face to face. Starman Jones, a relatively birthday present. Oh, awesome.
I used to tell my son, this is my biological son who turned 45 recently, Oh my gosh. I used to tell him bedtime stories about Starman Jones and Space Pup and Billy and how they would go and do these exciting things. And one of the things that they did when Billy was born, he was too young to go on these adventures. And so they did a relativistic trip, a very, very fast trip to Sirius and back. And they arrived back on his 9th birthday. He was a little bit older, but he was 9 years older. And this was his relativity birthday present.
Wow.
Dr. Frank Drake, he's the man who founded the SETI Institute, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. He is the director of the Carl Sagan Institute for Intelligence in the Universe. And he's a friend of mine, and it belongs to a club that I belong to, the Los Angeles Adventurers Club. And I talked over the manuscript with him, and he sat down with me and worked out. We made sure that we got the math right, and we made sure that we got all of these elements so that somebody who dug into it wouldn't find errors. And then he wrote the foreword for the parents and the foreword for the children.
Wow. Man, gosh, you've just amazed me. I'm just like, is there anything this man hasn't done?
I haven't gone to space yet.
Oh, well, yeah. But you have vicariously through your book.
I have done that, and I'm hoping to live long enough that I can end up going to space on the first launch loop that gets built.
Okay, so this makes me want to ask the question. This has to be asked. You've been so many exotic places. What is your favorite location to write?
Wherever I happen to,
or have you been there yet?
Wherever I happen to be.
Can you write anywhere? Do you have the ability to just write wherever you are?
If I have 10 minutes, I can open up my laptop or pull out my iPad, and I can write several paragraphs.
That's amazing, because I'm getting, the older I get, the worse I get. I have to have, my coffee has to be there, and, my laptop has to be just so, and I have to know that, I have 2 monitors, and my monitors have got to be set just right.
What do you mean, the older you get? You're still a young chick.
Well, age just keeps right on moving right along.
Tell me about it.
So,
I'm heading towards my 73rd.
No.
Yes.
No. You do not look anything like your age, if that is true. And I don't know that that's even true. I think you may be pulling my leg. So tell us what's coming up next for you after the what was it? The slingshot?
Slingshot.
Is there going to be more for this?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing the sequel to the Star Child Compact. The sequel is called the Iapetus Federation. The Star Child Compact has an interplay with Islam. The spaceship and the international crew that are going to Iapetus to find out whether it's an artifact or not finds a jihadist stowaway on board.
Interesting.
The world that they come from, a little bit in the future, has the U.S. as a major power, the European Union sort of as a major power, and the Persian Caliphate as the third major power in the world. And these are offset against one another. Again, I'm not going to tell any of the details because
this is sounding really good.
It's surprises. But in any case, the book ends. The terrorist who tried to carry out his jihad against the explorers who went to Iapetus is allowed to live, and he sets up to create a worldwide caliphate to put Sharia law over the entire planet. In the meantime, Iapetus has been found for what it is, and again, without going into a lot of details, they find some of the people who originally came way back when hopscotch their way forward relativistically, and they meet the explorers, and together they create the Iapetus Federation, which includes the L4 and L5 complexes, the moon colonies, the Mars colonies, some of the others, into a loosely knit Federation away from Earth. And the sequel to the book tells that story. Tells the story of the conquest of Earth by militant Islam and people like us leaving and creating a new life in the Iapetus Federation out in the solar system.
Wow. I can't wait. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, your work just sounds astonishing, seriously, and I just cannot wait to dive right in. And I'm looking forward to it a great deal. I think I can learn a lot from you, writer to writer. I mean, I think your experiences are going to come through to through your writing, and your books are going to take me to lands far and above anything that I thought about. And so I'm really excited about that. I mean, and just thrilled to death to have you on my show. And I hope that my viewers out there really appreciate the value that I've provided with them just by having you on my show. And, gosh, will you please come back?
I'll be delighted to come back. And let me tell your viewers, go to Amazon and order the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get the ebook. The ebook is $3.95, and the hardbound or the softbound are what hardbound and softbounds cost. If you want an autographed copy, you can reach me through Twitter. That's the easiest way. Reach me through Twitter, and we'll figure out payment, and I'll autograph and send you one. I have no problem with it.
That's awesome, and I think I'm going to probably do that just as soon as I finish our recording. So, Robert, be sure and tell all of my viewers how they can find you on the internet, where they can look you up. I mean, Amazon, obviously.
Okay, my personal website is robertwilliscroft.com. That's easy, if you can spell Williscroft.
It's not hard, folks.
robertwilliscroft.com. And on my website are links to everything else. You can go in with a book. You can look up starchildcompact.com, and that'll take you right to the website for that book. You can look up ivy-bells.com, and that'll take you to that one. You can look up starmanjones.com, and that'll take you to the children's books.
That's fantastic. And you're also on Twitter. You're also on Facebook. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. But you know what? I'm just thrilled to death to know you, and I'm so pleased that you came on my show, and I look forward to you coming back again real soon.
Very good. I will be absolutely delighted.
Thanks again.